to C major 7s going back and forth, just a 2-chord vamp in the key of G major. The idea here is to approach each chord and target the chord tones as the chords are switching back, rather than just using the scale patterns that are appropriate. The idea here is to visualize how the triad moves across the fretboard in this sort of linear type fashion. So if we take a look at the G major 7 chord, right? So you think like here's a regular G chord, or G major 7 in the open position, or G major 7 like a drop 3 type voicing. Either way, even like this sort of closed position voicing, you end up with G, B, D, and F sharp. So just looking at the triad, we have G, B, and D. So the question would be, how could we take those 3 notes and play them across the fretboard in this sort of linear type fashion, which is just finding them. Right now I'm focusing on the middle 3 strings, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings here. So in this position you end up with G, B, and then D here. And then going over here we have B, D, and then G here. So that's 9th fret, 7th fret on the 3rd string, and then 8th fret on the 2nd string. And then on the 12th fret we end up with D, G, and B, all 3 notes being on the 12th fret. And again, that's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings. And then to get an octave up version of that GBD triad, we end up right here with 17, 16, and then 15. So now we can add the major 7 onto that, which would be the F sharp. Happens in a couple of places in each position. So you would end up with G, B, D, and F sharp, or you could slide up to the F sharp on the 7th fret of the 2nd string. Now what I like about that slide is it gives you a way to add that sort of feeling of that position slide going back and forth. So when you're trying to come up with melodic ideas, that's a really easy way to add emotion and feeling onto your playing. Which a really nice thing to do is to slide into each note from below, I'm even using that E as a passing tone because it is a scale tone. So that'd be a diatonic passing tone. Now notice in this position here, that's coming all right from a G major scale. So that would be F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and then A. So that would just be the 2-octave major scale pattern. And then again, we can play that here starting from G, same exact thing. If you're looking to learn some major scale patterns, I have a ton of this stuff at practicetheguitar.com. You can follow the link below to check that out. But so now, as you go through each one of these positions here, seeing where the G falls here, now you can use that same F sharp here on the 7th fret of the 2nd string. You can even bend that F sharp up a half step to G. Using that same idea of approaching the note from below, feeling out of each note. But that F sharp also exists here on the 11th fret of the 3rd string. And there's also that E right here too. Really cool way to make some actual licks out of these small arpeggio patterns. I feel like that's what I've always run into as a problem using arpeggios, making melodic lines or making just licks or soloing ideas as a whole, is that you end up just simply kind of playing up and down the arpeggio. This is how we all learn arpeggios, is simply going up and down them. And it's really hard to make musical phrases out of anything that we just simply go up and back down. But that is an important building block to make those notes physically easier to connect from place to place, especially with arpeggios, because you always end up with either 1 or 2 notes on each string, so there's a lot of string switching which makes it really hard to play these patterns proficiently. But again, you know, those 3 and 4 notes all fall right under the G major scale right here. This is what I would call pattern 3 of the G major scale. And so now going up here to the 12th fret, you end up with D, G, and B here all on the 12th fret. Now the F sharp is here on the 11th fret of the 3rd string. There's also a D right here, that's the 15th fret of the 2nd string, which you could even slide up to the 19th fret on the 2nd string to get that F sharp, which is a repeat of this kind of idea. But that F sharp is also on the 14th fret of the 1st string here. Moving on to the octave up from the 3rd position, it's literally 17, 16, and then 15, same F sharp if you want it. The major scale that falls right there, again, is what I call pattern 7 of the major scale. So you can see how those notes overlap. But what's really nice about this is just on the G, this is a real easy way to connect these notes across the fretboard, to think more in a linear type fashion. Just because we always spend so much time going up and down each scale pattern. Really cool way to make melodic lines, just using those same 3 notes for the triad and then adding the F sharp in if you wanted to do a 4-note version of that chord, which is essentially just adding the major 7, of course. Now looking at this over C, we want to be able to approach the chord tones for a C major 7 chord as well. So the next step, once you can see where one chord goes across the fretboard, would be adding another chord, hence the idea of this 2-chord vamp. So for C major 7, we end up with C, E, G, and B. So that can be played in so many different places. And then C, E, G, B, or even E, G, and C, just the triad. So looking at just the triad, you end up with what I would consider first inversion, because we're starting from the 3rd, and then the second inversion, which would be starting from the 5th, which is G, C, and E, and then from the root, which is C, E, and G, and then from the 3rd again, from the 12th fret, which is E, G, and C. Of course, that repeats again on the 17th fret with the second inversion, which is G, C, and E. Now, the major 7th on a C chord is, of course, the note B. So the places you can add B onto that, C, E, G, open B right here. And then from here, G, C, E, B right here on the 4th fret. And then C, E, G, B, or that sliding idea, 12th fret on the 2nd string. Notice that these are all the same shapes from G. So for example, like G from the root, G, B, D, could also be C from the root, C, E, G. And then, say for example, G from the 3rd, B, D, and G also repeats E, G, and C. And then from the 5th, we end up with D, G, and B, which is also G, C, and E. So these also make the same 3 shapes, which makes this really easy to switch once you can start to see the notes moving across. And the other important thing here is that it's important you make the connection between each one of these triad inversions and the corresponding major scales, so you can start to see where the full major scale fits on top of that as well. It's a good way to connect visually and note-wise with how the notes fall on the fretboard. So you can choose your notes and target each chord as it switches. So I'm going to play and speak a little bit through these chord changes so I can show you how each one of these fall as the chords change with the track. If you want to try to practice with this track as well, the link for this is right down below. There's a whole playlist for all 7 modes in the key of G. So starting with G. But now it switches to C. See, I'm sliding in from below. Here's G, and then C, and now G again, then C. Now moving that up here, G, and then C. Now going back down here, adding the F sharp in, C, adding the B in. Now here, C, now G, C, moving this up an octave, so see right there, I'm picking notes accordingly to exactly how the chords change. So like on the C, G, F sharp, over the C chord. So over that little part right there, when it switched to the C, I played E, C, and then the B, which acts as the major 7 against the C chord. So this gives you a way to simplify your note options and really target the note that you want to try to get as the chord is happening. That's that next level of improvisation and soloing where you can really target the note that you want within a phrase that you're hearing in your head to connect to the notes that work appropriately for the chord change. Approach here would be taking the same arpeggio ideas and moving them across one string at a time. This takes a little bit more work, but I'll show you here. Starting with G, just on the 4th string. Here's G, B, D, F sharp, and then there's G. Waiting for the G chord, G, B, D, F sharp, G. And then on the 2nd string, here's B, D, F sharp, G, B. And then on the 1st string, F sharp, G, B, D, F sharp, and then G. This makes for some really cool ideas, just outlining 1 or 2 chords like this, where you can go across, and rather than laying the notes out across more than one string, lay those arpeggios out just on one string. And I'm just starting with the lowest notes that you can play. So here's D, F sharp, G, B, D, F sharp, and then G. And then again on the 3rd string, G, B, D, F sharp, G, high B if you want it, even another D, open B, D, F sharp, G, B, D, F sharp, and then G. Really useful for, again, looking at the fretboard in this sort of linear fashion, moving up and down this way. There's a new exercise on my site, which are 2-octave C major 7 arpeggios in 4 inversions, moving across the neck at 15 tempos. You should definitely check that out. Click on all the links below. There's tons of exercises at practicetheguitar.com, not only to help you to learn where the notes are, but also learn these arpeggios, bigger arpeggio shapes, smaller arpeggio shapes, and primarily making the focus of learning the notes on the fretboard so you can target these chords with tons of technique exercises to help you to build your speed and your technique. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. See you next time.